You're brushing your teeth, or driving somewhere familiar, or you're almost asleep finally after a long day. Nothing is wrong. And then, with no warning at all, your brain reaches back 10 years and drops you straight into the single most embarrassing thing you have ever done. The wrong name said out loud, the joke nobody laughed at, the thing you wish to this day you could unsay. Your whole body cringes. Maybe you actually wince or whisper no to an empty room. Nobody else remembers it. Nobody else was even paying attention. So, why is your own mind ambushing you with it years later for absolutely no reason? If this happens to you, I want you to know two things right away. You are not alone, and you are not malfunctioning. Almost everyone gets these sudden uninvited memories. People have a casual name for them. They call them cringe attacks. And there is a deeper, stranger reason. Your brain keeps that one moment loaded and ready to fire. Once you understand what's actually running underneath it, the attacks lose most of their power because there's a system behind them. I call it the Shame Sentinel. Here's the first thing that should bother you. Your brain is not a neutral recording device. It does not save your days evenly. The boring afternoons fade. The grocery lists vanish. But that one humiliating moment from years ago is preserved in near perfect detail, ready to play in high definition the second you let your guard down. That is not an accident. Somewhere in your head, a decision was made that this memory was important enough to keep forever. The question is why? And the answer goes back further than you'd think, to a time when being embarrassed in front of the group was a genuine threat to your survival. To understand the shame sentinel, you have to understand what embarrassment is actually for. We treat it like a useless glitch, a pointless feeling that exists only to make us suffer. It's the opposite. Embarrassment is one of the oldest social tools you own. For almost all of human history, you could not survive alone. You needed the group for food, for warmth, for protection from the dark. Getting cast out wasn't just humiliating, it was dangerous. So your ancestors evolved an internal alarm, a part of the mind whose only job was to watch how you appear to everyone else and sound off the instant you might be losing their respect. That alarm is the shame sentinel. And every cringe attack is it doing the job it was built for. But that raises a harder question. If the danger is over, if that awkward moment was years ago and nobody on earth still cares, why won't the sentinel let it go? Because of how your brain decides what's worth keeping. When something happens that's soaked in strong emotion, two regions deep in your head light up together. One is a small almond shaped alarm center. The other is the structure right beside it that files your experiences into long term memory. When the alarm fires hard, it stamps that memory with a bright red flag that says save this in detail, do not delete. Embarrassment is one of the most powerful flags there is, because to the sentinel, a social mistake reads as a survival mistake. So the moment your face went hot, your brain didn't just feel it and move on. It burned the whole scene into permanent storage, on purpose, so you would supposedly never make that mistake again. That's why these memories feel so vivid. But it still doesn't explain the timing, why one of them ambushes you in the shower out of a perfectly clear sky. Here's the next layer. Your memories aren't stored in neat, separate folders. They live in a vast web, each one wired to others by thin invisible threads. A smell, a word, a tone of voice, a flash of a familiar feeling. You don't notice most of those threads getting pulled. Someone says a phrase that rhymes with something from that day. A song plays that was everywhere that year. A stranger laughs in a way that lands the same. And the web does what webs do. It tugs the connected memory up into the light. To you, it feels random and cruel. To your brain, something just brushed the thread, and the sentinel grabbed the file it had marked as urgent and held it up to your face. Remember this. Don't ever do it again. And here is where the sentinel makes its biggest mistake. The one that's been quietly torturing you for years. It is utterly convinced that everyone else remembers your worst moment as vividly as you do. They don't. They never did. Psychologists have a name for this gap. They call it the spotlight effect. In a now classic experiment, people were asked to walk into a room full of strangers wearing a deliberately embarrassing shirt, and then guess how many of those strangers had noticed. The wearers were sure that roughly half the room had clocked it. The real number was closer to a quarter, and most of those barely registered it at all. The lesson is brutal and freeing at the same time. People are paying about half as much attention to you as you imagine they are. That mortifying thing you did. The other people in the room had forgotten it by dinner. The only person still screening it on a loop in agonizing detail is you. So sit with what that actually means. The Shame Sentinel is replaying a tape of a crime that the entire jury has already forgotten. It's bracing you for a punishment that is never going to arrive. The pain is real, the threat is not. And once you can see that gap between how dangerous the memory feels and how harmless it actually is, you get something most people never have: a choice about what to do when it fires. Because here's the thing you can't do: you can't delete the file. Fighting the memory, arguing with it, trying to shove it down and out of sight, that only tells the sentinel the threat must be real. So it flags the moment as even more important and guards it even harder. The move is the opposite of fighting. The next time a cringe attack hits, instead of flinching away from it, you turn and face it, and you say something almost gentle. Thank you. You were trying to protect me. There's no danger here. You name it for what it is: an old alarm with a dead battery, still faintly ringing in an empty house. You're not arguing with the sentinel, you're updating it, telling it, at last, that the threat it's been bracing against ended a very long time ago. Let me show you why this matters. Because two people can carry the exact same memory and end up living in two completely different worlds. Picture two people who, years back, said something foolish in front of a crowded room. Same mistake. Same blush climbing up the same neck. The first one treats every cringe attack as evidence. Every time the memory fires, he flinches, he believes it, he files it onto the growing case against himself. See, you're an idiot. Everyone saw, everyone still remembers. The memory shrinks him a little more each time it returns. He starts staying quiet in meetings. He stops raising his hand. He builds a smaller and smaller life, carefully arranged around the fear of ever being embarrassed again. The second one feels the exact same jolt from the exact same kind of memory. But she understands the shame sentinel. So when it fires, she doesn't flinch. She thinks, there's my old alarm doing its job. Nobody else remembers this. I'm safe. And she lets it drift past her like weather. She keeps speaking up. She keeps taking the ordinary risk of being seen. Same memory, same brain, same wiring. The only difference between them is the story each one tells about the signal. And over the years, that story quietly grows into the size of an entire life. Because that's what's really hiding inside a cringe attack. It was never proof that you're humiliating or unlovable or broken. It's proof of the exact opposite. It's proof that you have a mind that cares deeply about being good to the people around you, so deeply that it built a guard that never once sleeps. The cringe is simply the cost of being a creature that belongs to a group, that wants connection, that takes other people seriously. The ones who never feel it aren't free. They're just not paying attention. Your sentinel is loud because your heart is fully in the game. So the next time your brain reaches back a decade and shoves your worst moment into your face, try not to take it as an attack. Take it as an overprotective old friend, still standing guard over a danger that passed long ago. You can thank it. You can tell it you're safe now. And you can go on living a wide, loud, fully seen life, instead of a small one built around a single moment that everyone but you has already forgotten. One gentle note before you go: the everyday cringe attacks we've talked about, the random, passing kind, are a normal and harmless feature of a healthy social brain. But if these memories ever stop passing, if they harden into a constant loop that floods you with shame, or they start keeping you away from people and places you used to enjoy, that's a different thing, and it deserves real care. None of this is medical advice. Please talk to a doctor or a therapist if those memories feel heavier than you can carry on your own. You were never meant to stand guard alone. Your most embarrassing memory isn't a sign that something is wrong with you. It's the echo of a system that has been trying, clumsily and far too loudly, to keep you connected to the people you need. Learn its language, and that ambush in the shower stops being a punishment. It becomes what it always was, proof of how deeply you were built to care. If you are giving sleep a real chance, full nights, consistent schedule, and you still wake up exhausted week after week, that is not a discipline problem. That can be sleep apnea or something else worth catching, and it is a conversation for a doctor, not a hack to push through. For everyone else, pick one lever. The fixed wake time is the strongest. Run it for 2 weeks. You will not feel like you slept 8 hours on 4. You will feel something better. 8 hours that finally count as 8. Tonight, you are not trying to hack anything. You are giving the audit the time it needs. And the version of you that walks out of tomorrow will know the difference. The hours were never missing, they were being written off. Let the books balance.